This is part three of the Holy Wars between the Jews and the Romans. And once again, I'm not a historian. I'm only uh, telling you what I know. This is an open forum. You're more than happy to correct me, and I will research it. Any of you guys who subscribe to my channel, you already know that I will go and look something up. I don't have a problem with that, and I'll look it up in more places than just one. Yeah, I last left off with where we came from as Jews, the black Jews. And for people who question, the black Jews out of Jerusalem, for one, we're not African Americans. We're not even Africans. We're Jew. We're Jews. That's the country we came from. Yeah, Jerusalem is where we came from. Uh, and and so let's get that out the way. For those people who think that the white people are the real Jews, uh, because they say they are, they can never prove that they're the real Jews. Especially when you start going through the Bible and look at the history of the Bible. The Bible tells you that the real Jews will not even be in Jerusalem right now until Christ comes back. So what are they doing there? And not only that, why are they fighting? You know what I mean? Why are they fighting over the Gaza Strip? Why are they fighting over the Holy Land? There has been wars over the Holy Land ever since Christ left the Holy Land, um, and even before then. So, because it's the Holy Land, it's the one place that God honors, and He talks about consistently, and even in the Bible, it said Jerusalem is above us all. So it also said Jerusalem is a motherland. So there is a lot of people who want to claim that. But like I said, the Arabs who are there, who built synagogues over churches, the book of Revelation said that they're synagogues of Satan. And then you have the Russians who are there, who are Russian converts, who converted to Judaism. And the reason why they converted to Judaism, because of one, war, always war. And so basically, from what I can remember, there were three different religious factions. Of course, there were the Christians, and then there were uh, the Muslims. And the Christians and the Muslims have been going at it, like I said, constantly. And then in between them were the Russians, who had a solid army, and they were, I believe the Russians at one time were no, I'm not even going to say it. I almost said, no, I'm not even going to say it because somebody's going to be like, nah, that wasn't them. But, I am going to say it. I think that they were Scythians, but, somebody's going to say, well, the Scythians were black. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't, okay. When you look at Europe, Europe was black occupied at one time. When you look at the Roman army was not made up of all white people. That is a complete lie. There were plenty of what you consider Africans in the Roman army because they conquered so much. Now, when you look at a lot of these movies, you see the Roman army is mostly white, but that's nowhere near the truth, because the Romans were, for one, they were the third largest empire ever, so they had spread all over the place. And then also when you look at Alexander the Great, Alexander the Great. Who had supposedly never been conquered himself and won every battle. Basically, once he Alexander the Great won every battle, but he won pretty much too much. Basically, what he did was his army ran out of steam. They just didn't want to fight anymore. But nonetheless, once he died, his sons took over, and then you have the result as today, as they're still conquering. They took over and they multiplied and divided and conquered. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But when you when you look at the term the more things change, the more things stay the same. So, okay, so when you look at the three factions, you had the Russians, then you had on one side you had the Muslims, and the other side you had the Christians. When you look at the Russians who were in the middle, they were in a political and a war position to where both armies came to them and said, listen, convert to our religion. So they came to the Russians and said, the Muslims came to the Russians and said, listen, convert to being Muslim so we can go ahead and crush Christians. The Christians say, convert to Christianity so we can crush the Muslims. And what the Russians basically did was they converted to Judaism. Once the Russians converted to Judaism, this, in their mind, let them gave them permission to lay claim to Jerusalem, saying that they are Jews. But they are not Jews. They are Russians. They are what's called Abkhazians, who was a warlike race. And when you look this up, you'll find out everything I'm saying right now is very true. They were a warlike race, and they only did it pretty much for the purposes of war. Now, recently, Obama has made a contract with Jerusalem to send, I think it's almost $40 billion over there. Well, okay, once again, the more things change, the more things stay the same. When you look at the Jews, the black Jews, who started in Jerusalem, of course, went into Egypt, were enslaved by the Africans in Egypt, and then were sold into slavery by the Africans off the Ivory Coast, and then came here and were still into slavery, and we still are in slavery today. It's just a different type of slavery. When you look at that fact, and all that is fact, then when you look at the Arab Jews, who are Muslims, and they're trying to occupy the holy city and claim that they are the real Jews. And then when you look at the Russians, who are claiming that they are the real Jews, I'm sorry, my battery's running low. Uh, Nonetheless, you look at it's all position. So basically, the Jews still run this country, is what I'm saying. So the so-called African American or the black Jews are still in slavery by the Romans and the Abkhazians, who are the Jewish people. We're still enslaved by them. They are still conquering us. The book of Deuteronomy talks about all of this. We are still in that same situation. Okay, I'm going to talk more about this, but my battery's running low.